Welcome to the AFT Michigan podcast. I'm your host, Terrence Martin. I'm the president of AFT Michigan, joined today by Jenny Moss, who's the president of WOW, our Wayne State Faculty Union. Jenny, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
It's a great time now to have someone from higher ed on our show. We've had a number of folks in K-12 and other areas, but now having someone in higher ed, certainly considering all that is happening and coming out of DC, I think it's appropriate that we have a conversation and hear from our higher ed folks. But before we get into that conversation, I certainly want to know sort of your origin story, where you're from and how you got involved in union work.
Yeah, so I'm originally from New Jersey, and my dad was a K-12 teacher, taught middle school for 30-something years, and was very involved with his teachers' union. Took them out on strike once, actually considered going and working for the union at one point too, but he loved teaching too much. Okay. So my first academic job was non-unionized, and I watched the way that the administration was able to abuse individual faculty members, and some of it was borderline cruel. And so when I got this job at Wayne, I was just so excited because it was a union shop.
Sure.
And so I walked in the first day and signed up for the union, and I've been involved ever since. That was 30 years ago.
Fantastic. I mean, it's you get it honest, right? Coming from a union household, I'm the same. Both my grandparents were UAW members, and the first thing I did was show up and go directly to our building rep and sign up for the union. Tell our folks what it's like working at Wayne State, being a professor there.
Well, I love Wayne State. I'm the biggest advocate of Wayne State. Wayne State is such a unique place because we are what's called an R1 university, that is a research-intensive university. So we're at the sort of highest level, the elite level of universities in this country. And then we are also a university of opportunity. So we take in folks that probably wouldn't get admitted to other schools, and we turn them into gems because they have that potential in them. We also have one of the most diverse campuses in America. And one of the things that our students really learn on our campus is how to interact with people who are very different from themselves.
Sure.
And you don't get that at very elite schools. For the most part, people are elite who go to elite schools. But our students are different ethnically, religiously, culturally, education levels, ages, everything. And when I talk to students, 10 years after they've graduated, they always say they think that's the best thing they got from Wayne State was the diversity.
Fantastic, fantastic. And you now the president of WOW. Talk a bit about your local, some of the great things that are happening there, and some of the challenges that you all face.
Yeah, so WOW, which used to be called AAUP-AFT, but we decided we needed a better name. So we are the Wayne Academic Union, which comes out wow. It's great, right? Spelled differently, but it's still encouraging.
Sure.
We are one of the older academic unions in the country. We represent the full-time faculty, so that's the tenure stream faculty and the non-tenured stream faculty, all the full-time. But then also the academic staff. So that includes people like librarians, coaches, academic advisors, all the degreed people who work with students at the university. But we've been around since the 70s. And we have a very mature contract, but one which still, of course, now, as the world changes, still needs a lot of changing and a lot of alterations. I think the good news for us is that people at Wayne are used to being an organized labor force, and we are not the only union on campus. We have 14 unions. So we're very much a union shop. The challenges we have are, of course, representing people in such very diverse positions with very diverse salaries. So we have a salary range of roughly $300,000 in our union. And that does cause some problems. Our last contract, we negotiated the best raises for the people at the very lowest end. To try to get them up to a living wage. And there's some resentment from people at the higher end. That sort of thing happens. But we're also representing people whose jobs are so different. So I'm a professor on campus, but a person who's a professor at the med school, their job is completely different from mine.
Yes. Yes.
And I don't always understand their job, and they don't understand my job. Like in my mind, someone who is a professor teaches classes, but that's not true for everyone who has that title at our university.
Right.
So that's a challenge. We're also moving in a quite different direction now than we have for many years. We're trying to be way more open, more communicative, more democratic. And surprisingly, not everybody really wants a union that's very democratic.
Sure.
A lot of people like someone at the top to make decisions for them and to not involve them so that it's not work for them. So getting people activated, is still a challenge.
Oh, certainly. I mean, member mobilization is a challenge, I'm sure, in most locals, regardless of what you teach, whether you teach or whether you work in the auto industry, et cetera, and remains to be one of the challenges that we all face. We work, the major part of what we do as labor leaders, we talk about those cookie cutter bread and butter issues. Wages, working conditions, benefits, and things of that nature. Talk a bit about some of the stuff that you all do outside of that.
Right now, obviously, we're trying to deal with the politics of the time, which is challenging. And I hate to say this, but the good news about the politics of the time is it is mobilizing more of our members,
For sure.
because they're wondering, what can the union do about this? But we're also trying to bring people together in a way that's more social and friendly. When you have a commuter campus, the students come and go all the time, but so do the faculty and the staff. And it's really challenging because if you want to know the people that you work with, it's actually really hard, and it's gotten much worse after the pandemic. There are a lot of people that just come in, do their job and leave, or they work remotely and you never see them. So we are trying to also provide some community building within the university, which benefits everybody. I mean, I think most people are better off when they're in a social environment and then they feel more a part of something. But it also helps, like me, for example, to meet and talk with academic advisors to see what they're saying to students, and then I can tell them what I think students should hear, and they can tell me, and we have communication. So then when I have a student maybe who's an engineering major and I don't have anything to do with that college, I've met some people from that school and I can say to them, hey, maybe you should talk to this person. Like, that would be a good contact for you. Or I heard that this class would be really beneficial to you, that sort of thing. So I think we all benefit when we get to know each other better. So we're having social events, we're having parties, we're having bowling nights, we're doing whatever we can to get people to just come together.
And what I've noticed over the years is that those events help to bridge gaps. And
there's nothing like bowling badly in front of other people.
That's right.
Which I've done.
That's right. It truly builds community and trust as we start to build and really fight back against all the craziness that's happening. And speaking of all the craziness that is happening, we know that elections have consequences. And with the new administration in D.C., it seems they've come directly for education. With the conversation on dismantling the Department of Public Education and all the cuts that can come as a result of that. We often talk about what it means for children who attend schools in K-12 and what it means for educators and education professionals who work in that area. But we don't talk enough about what happens, what this could mean for higher ed. So talk about what the cuts, what the closing of the Department of Education could mean for higher education, and particularly for Wayne State.
Yeah, it's all bad. Every bit of it is bad. First of all, we're functioning in a state that barely funds higher education to begin with, right? We're way down at the bottom in the 40s for higher education funding. So funding is always the great challenge in higher ed. So far, Washington has attacked research grants, which I think probably a lot of people don't understand what this whole research grant business is about. But it's basically, there was an agreement after World War II, beginning of the Cold War, that the government would fund scientific research with an eye toward keeping us safe from our enemies, but also funding technologies, not just munitions and things like that, but technologies, medicine, et cetera.
Yep.
In other countries, sometimes they have a different model where there are government institutes of science. Here we agreed that the government would fund universities for research. So a scientist at a place like Wayne State, and we have many of them, will apply to the federal government for a grant. They have to do an enormous amount of paperwork. These are very competitive grants.
Sure.
And they get a grant to work on a particular research project. Now that person is called the PI, the primary investigator. But they will employ many, many people to be part of that project. Some of those people will be other like lower level, younger scientists. Some of them will be graduate students, and the graduate students' entire education is funded by that grant. And then they have to have people, I mean, science is very expensive and it's very complicated.
Yes.
So you have to, maybe there's a particular kind of electron microscope that you're using. That piece of equipment costs $1.5 million, and you have to have two people whose job it is only to operate that machine.
Right, right.
But then you also have to have people who supervise animals if animals are involved in the research. And those people aren't like $15 an hour employees. They're doctors, they're vets. You have to have people who deal with hazardous waste disposal. And there's so many moving pieces to this. And some of these grants, if you read the title of the research, might say like, why should I care about this? Well, if you've ever known anyone with cancer and they're still alive, you should care about this.
Yeah.
Because there are many steps along the way to coming up with a cure for a type of cancer. Or there are many steps to developing an iPhone.
Yes.
Or developing an internet. Or developing a drug that maybe will cure lymphoma. All of those things take years and years and years and years, many research studies, often being conducted at different universities at the same time or different times, to get to the end product that benefits people.
Yeah.
There is nowhere else in the United States where this sort of research is done. It's only done in universities.
And that they sort of lay the groundwork.
It's all
of that.
That's
to
where
happen.
all of it is.
Yeah.
You know, so my own sister was diagnosed recently with breast cancer. She was treated with a brand new type of research-based cure, and she's fine. That wouldn't have happened.
Wow.
It wouldn't have happened if that research hadn't been done in universities.
Yeah.
So we're cutting off our future.
Yes.
There will be no new thing like an iPhone. There will be no new thing like cancer cures. All of those things will die. There will be no young scientists because the only thing funding graduate students in science are these grants.
Yeah. So those grad students are folks that we represent.
Right.
In many institutions.
Right.
These are jobs.
Yes.
So it's simply not just a line item in a budget.
Right.
A line item for a grant. These are real people doing real research for our country, for our future.
Right, and then it's not only those folks, but it's also the folks that operate that building, because the building will have to shut down. Because one of the parts of these grants is overhead, so to pay for the costs of the lights, the water, all those things in the building. If those grants get cut off, or if they get sharply reduced, we have to shut the building down. And so then the custodians lose their jobs. Then the folks who work in food service lose their jobs. Yeah, it's absolutely devastating.
This is a message I think that a lot of people need to hear. I don't know that we've had someone to sort of break it down the way that you just did in terms of what these cuts could really mean for our folks. That's why these conversations are so important, and we get these things out to our membership so that they can actually see it, and the general public so they can actually see it. What would be your message, or what has your message been to your membership about how we fight back against these things?
Well, we've done, the simple things like have a meeting and say, we're all going to stop right now and everybody call your legislators right now. And we give them a message so that they're, right on top of what you need to say and how to say it. We've done a lot of that. We have tried really hard to be not too negative, to try to not break people's spirits, to try to say, like, we're going to get through this, although I don't always feel that way every day, to just try to keep people buoyed. We have been doing, I would say, a lot of therapy with people, taking phone calls and just letting people get stuff off their chests. We've had a couple of rallies on campus to make clear to people how important science is. And of course, this isn't only about science. These are also grants for the humanities, grants for the social sciences. It's the sciences where the big hurt will be if there are cuts. We have tried very hard to persuade our administrators on campus to stand up, to be heard, to get a voice and to use it. Unfortunately, among college presidents, there's basically, there's two types. There are the ones who are taking a stand, and there are the ones who are, as with all controversies, there are people who think you've got to get out there and take a stand, and there are the people who think that if you rock the boat, you're going to make it worse. Right now, our administration seems very averse to boat rocking. Although I hope that our union's actions have persuaded our president to sign on to the AAC&U statement. She at least did that.
You can rock the boat and it get worse, or you can not rock the boat and it gets worse.
It gets worse, exactly.
But at least you show the school community that you care, and that this is a priority for you. And so we encourage all of our presidents and to certainly take a stand for education, take a stand for what's right. Part of our fight back is always building power and building community, and we do that in a multitude of ways. This podcast is part of it, really informing our folks of what these cuts could really mean. Another part is mobilizing members around an issue, but also building community, really getting out in the community and showing students and showing families and folks who really, really care about the Wayne State community where we need them to help us and fight back. What are some other ways that you think we can build power around this issue?
Yeah, I think education is a really important part of it. I think, for people to understand how far-reaching the attacks on higher education are, and things like, in higher ed, we do tend to live in a bit of a bubble, maybe less at a place like Wayne State than in a Harvard. But when we talk about things like shared governance and academic freedom, people have no idea what we're talking about, right? And so you have to get down to the nitty-gritty. Like, do you really want someone in the Trump administration telling Moss what she can say in her classroom? Is that really the best way to educate people? I would argue no, but they can do that if we let them. They can get into the weeds of what we do. They can decide. If you look at what Trump proposed to Columbia and Harvard, that Harvard said no to and is now being attacked like we're at war with them.
Imagine that. It's Howard. It's Harvard. Imagine how Harvard doing that. Right?
I saw a meme today that said, how many Americans ever thought they would side with Harvard? Right. But what they proposed to them was that the government wanted control over hiring faculty, course selection, course content. This is insane. And so I don't think people understand that, like, I decide what gets taught in my class because I'm an expert in those fields, and that's what you want your college to, that's what you're paying for, all that money, that's what you're paying for, and what the courses should be. Shared governance is another concept that's so weird to people who don't work in academia, but again, it's so critical. Shared governance means that the faculty have a tremendous say in what happens at the university. It's never the final word, mind you.
Sure.
It can always be overridden, but we get to say what happens. So we get to say, yes, we need a school of public health. Or no, we think that's a waste of money. Or we think maybe we don't need these couple of majors anymore, they're not terribly popular. Or we get to a say in a lot of the policies around what happens at the university. You don't want that to only rest with the administration, who these days, because of the sort of corporatization of the university,
Sure.
they tend to be outsiders. They're
Right.
not the people who've been there for 30 years.
Right, right. And it's this notion, and I think, that's one of the similarities between K-12 and higher ed, is really thinking about the freedom to learn and the freedom to teach.
Right.
And that's essentially what you are explaining right now, is that the government wants to simply take that away from us, from K-12 all the way through higher education.
Right. And they also seem to want to institute a thing, and I don't even know what it is, but I don't know what they think happens in college classrooms, but I know they're wrong about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they seem to think we're like brainwashing the students in some way into our liberal ways of thinking. A lot of people make the joke that if I could brainwash students, I'd brainwash them to read the syllabus and do their homework, right? But we
Right.
don't brainwash them. We lead them through exercises in thinking.
Sure.
That's
Sure.
what we do. That means I present some sort of liberal interpretations of things. I present some conservative interpretations of things. And I let the students think about it. But I'm showing them how different people think. Let them develop their own way of thinking.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
converting anybody's politics. It's not what I'm there for.
And that seems to be what our government fears the most. Is
Yeah,
free
that's it.
thinking
This
individuals.
indoctrination idea is just kind of nuts. And I think the other thing is that if you work for years and years with people in this age range, this sort of 18 to 25 age range, they are just starting to discover who they are as human beings.
For sure.
They're starting to get away from their parents a little bit, so they come into it with their parents' way of thinking. And then we expose them to a lot of different people and a lot of different subjects and a lot of different reading material. And they start to think a little differently. And some of them become more liberal and some become more conservative.
Correct.
But they're at the stage of change that's so critical for them developing who they will be as adults. And it's why they dye their hair blue and they get piercings and tattoos and all that. It's all part of figuring out, who am I?
Yep. Yep.
And it's glorious to watch. It's absolutely wonderful to be a part of that. But we're not indoctrinating. It's
No.
just not what's happening.
We're fostering learning.
Right.
We're fostering growth.
Thinking.
We're fostering
Right.
thinking.
Right. That's
and,
what all we're doing is teaching them how to think.
and that's what's going to feed our society.
Right.
in the
I'm not
future.
presenting students with an exam where they're supposed to regurgitate all my liberal ideas about things. I don't even give exams. I don't even know, exams are kind of passé. So I don't even know what these folks think are happening in college
Sure.
classrooms. What's happening is, about a quarter of the kids are dozing off because they didn't sleep enough last night. They're all drinking energy drinks. This is what's happening in a college classroom. They either have a Starbucks or a Monster,
There you go.
and they love to argue with you, and it's great,
Yeah.
But it's an exchange of ideas. That's what's going on.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us today. On this show, we try to leave our audience with something positive, something to look forward to in the future. And as we sort of shift and close out our academic school year and start to go through summer and think about fall, what are some positive, something positive that we can leave our audience with today, you can leave our audience with today to sort of look forward to what happens next year?
It comes back to what I was just talking about. Students are always our future. We always have to invest in our students, whether they're kindergartners, preschoolers, graduate students, undergraduates, whoever it is. All of our energy should be going in that direction. Make sure our students are getting the best education they can, because public education is a public good. And as long as we're continuing to teach our students how to think and how to learn and how to be good citizens, we're going to survive this. We will.
We've survived. We'll survive this. We've survived worse.
We've survived worse. Exactly.
Well, thank you, Jenny, for joining us, and thank you all for tuning in. It's been another episode of the AFT Michigan podcast. We'll see you later.